This is the Tan Talk Radio Network.
Welcome to Moments of Clarity with Tiffany Werner, licensed mental health counselor in the state of Florida. Moments of Clarity's mission is to educate and end the stigma on mental health through the inspirational stories of our exceptional guests. You can join in the show by calling Tiffany toll-free at 866-826-1340 or on Facebook and Twitter at MOC with Tiffany. Now, here's Tiffany Werner.
Hi, thanks for listening. This is Moments of Clarity. My name's Tiffany Werner. I'm a licensed mental health counselor, and I'm your host. We're going to be talking about some very sensitive mental health issues today. And first, I want to say hi to Ed behind the glass.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Thanks for all you do. And I'm excited to have with me in studio another licensed mental health counselor, Julie Beachill, and she's specialized with trauma and dissociative identity and disorders. And thank you for being here.
Yes, thanks for having us.
And for the guest of honor here, too. She suffers or lives with dissociative identity disorder, which was formerly known as multiple personality disorder. And we're going to be talking about what that is and how that feels, and clear up some of the myths and things, and also a conference coming up that we're going to be discussing. And welcome to Moments of Clarity, Cole Ian.
Hi, Tiffany. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you for being here. And I know this is a little bit nerve-wracking, but, okay. But you're doing great. So let's talk a little bit about what DID is and how your journey so far.
Sure. For me, DID is a disorder that happens when you're from early infancy. Infancy is usually from infancy to 8 years of age. And the mind from severe childhood trauma, sexual, physical, emotional abuse. Sometimes people could be involved as a child in cults or sex trafficking, or forced into that. And so they develop a way to dissociate so that they can kind of live through that horrific tragedies that were happening in their lives. And so the mind splits so that you don't remember what is actually happening. Mm-hmm. And so you end up splitting to such a level that you don't remember. You form different parts of people that may even have different names, different viewpoints. So for me, that's kind of the summary of living with dissociative identity disorder and what it looks like from the brain aspect. I'm sure Julie could probably explain it more in depth in the other way, but that's just for me. That's how I look at it.
So how long have you known that you've lived with it?
I discovered that I had it in 2010, but I didn't want to officially get diagnosed until much later in life. Mm-hmm. I would say it was probably around 2012, I think it was, when I started, but it wasn't official until 2014 when I was diagnosed with it. But I knew from 2010.
Mm-hmm. And so how did you figure that out? Like what was going on?
So it was actually at the time I was dating now my husband. And one of the biggest things was, I'll just kind of give you a story of what happened. It's kind of, he thinks it's the most funniest story ever. I don't, of course. But we were eating pizza one night, and we were just having a conversation. And I don't remember what happened, except that he told me a little girl came out who was 4, and she was eating, and she was having a conversation with him. And I didn't remember it. And didn't remember having that conversation. I just know that my pizza was a mess. The cheese was eaten, but nothing else was eaten. So obviously that little girl only liked cheese and sauce and didn't like the bread.
Yeah.
So that's how we started kind of piecing things together. I had always known that I had some lost time. That was one of the biggest clues, I think. But I had worked so long. I worked in the childcare industry for many years, and I was a workaholic. So when time was missing, I didn't lose like weeks, and I would use...
That's good.
Yeah, it was just like little bits here and there, and so I always took it down as I was just really busy, and things got away from me, people that I would see that I didn't recognize or didn't know but knew me, I would just take it as, well, I meet a lot of people because I work in the childcare industry, and there's people that come and go all the time. So that was just kind of my way of making excuses for things that were happening all my life. And of course, when you have it your whole life, you just don't know it, you just think it's normal. So I thought it was normal.
So it's not like us walking into a room with glasses on our head looking for our sunglasses. Like, where did I put those? It's not like, or walking into a room wondering why we went in there because we forgot. It's much more serious.
Yes, it's much more serious. I began to realize I didn't have much of my childhood memories. I look at pictures and I didn't identify with them. My family would always tell me things, and I would be like, I don't remember that. And they were like, you have a really bad memory. Actually, I have a pretty good memory. It just depends on who's out.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know, and it was repetitive, though, that I would not remember big important events like my graduation. I didn't remember. I knew I graduated, but I couldn't tell you the details of it or the people that were there. But pictures would tell me. Oh, that's how I know that, because the pictures would show that these people were here. When I had been married previous to my marriage now to my ex-husband, and I didn't remember getting married. I don't remember any of the wedding, nothing, and it was very disconnected from everything. And even though I was there, I didn't remember those important details.
How many personalities would you say you live with?
I currently probably, I would say maybe 6 to 10. When I first discovered, I had over 30. And so, but there's been a lot of integration, a lot of coming together and harmonizing.
And so now there's 6?
Now there's about 6 or so, yes. Which is nice because you can work better that way. And we all work together, so it's a little bit more confusing the more you have. I felt like it was hard for me to kind of keep myself grounded and focus. So,
are any of your personalities dangerous or dangerous to you?
In the past, they were dangerous to me. I was a big self-harmer. I would cut a lot. I dealt with things with eating, and I would overeat to the extreme. I did a lot of self-destructive behaviors with relationships. My walking into the business world as a provider, you wouldn't think that. It looked like I had it all together, but when you closed the door, it was completely different. I didn't function very well, but I hid it really well. And so that was my way of destructive behavior. I didn't do it to others, it was just to myself. Very much cutting, self-harming, suicidal. I was very suicidal. I tried to attempt suicide on multiple occasions.
And so then you recollect and come to and be like, what did I do?
Yeah. I never, I would cut, but it was always in areas where it wasn't noticeable to the world. And when I suicide, I took pills. So, and I would overdose on that. And that was how my way of living through it.
It was very scary.
It was very scary, especially the more so of not knowing why I was doing it, what was going on, and how come I couldn't remember. And I didn't feel safe enough to share it with anyone. I felt like the world would judge me, and there was no one to talk to. I didn't have the support and the foundation that I have today, back then, to even know who to talk to. It was really, really challenging. It was in 2010 that my brain actually ended up, I would say, fully crashing, where I couldn't even function. I couldn't work. I ended up losing my business, completely lost my business by 2012. And from 2012 to 2014, I would say was the biggest time of my journey of recovery, because that's when everything started coming.
You started remembering?
I started remembering, and I thought I was going crazy. I didn't know what the stuff that I was remembering, and I didn't know who to talk to about it. And I knew some stuff from my childhood. I knew there was dysfunction, I tried talking to my family members, my brother, but it was very limited with him. He didn't want to talk about things, and so that made it a little bit challenging. Later down the road, my mom, who is now passed and deceased, she got healing in her own recovery, and so she was able to kind of piece the pieces together for me, which was a blessing.
Oh, okay.
So to have that confirmation really helped.
She validated your memories?
She validated a lot of them. Some of the things that I didn't go into with her, I just didn't feel it was necessary. But the things that I questioned, she validated, and the things that I didn't want her to know, I just kind of didn't talk about it with her. I just talked to my therapist about it. But if she had validated all the other things, I thought, well, she's validating all these other horrific things, then this has to be true too. I don't know why anyone would make this stuff up. It's horrifically horrible, and that was a question. And I still today struggle with that. Like, is this real? Did I make this stuff up? But it's like, what would be the purpose of it? What would be the point of doing that?
Right.
So yeah.
And your brother remembers stuff, he just doesn't want to talk about it?
Yeah, my brother remembers things. He does not have DID. But he can give names of people that I don't remember. Or he can tell details of things that I don't remember. He's really, and when I talk with him, I have to be really careful how I ask questions. When my mother passed, it was more open and revealing. He did start sharing a lot more with me about people that I didn't remember, and that was kind of validating. But he doesn't even know to this day that I have DID. Has no idea. We just don't talk about it. I'm sure he probably does. He just doesn't want to know.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
I mean, if he was there and he was traumatized, then it's only so much that somebody wants to delve into the past.
Right. Unless
they are looking for healing.
Exactly. So he kind of lives in his own world, and he's not. He does well for himself, but he just doesn't talk about it. So I'm the one that kind of had to do this on my own for a long time, and the best part of my healing, I think, was the support that I ended up finding to talk about it and have people explain to me what was going on and have that confirmation. I think for me it was important to be diagnosed. Not that I think that we should be labeled, but I do think that for me it was important for me to understand what was going on so that I could work on that and get healing to the best of my ability, and so that I can live a functioning normal, whatever
that is.
Whatever that is, but to have a normal, whatever that is, life.
Yeah.
So.
Just not to that extreme, right? Just whatever.
Not to that extreme. I didn't want to be self-harming. I didn't want to be losing time. I didn't want to be suicidal. I wanted to understand, and I didn't want to feel like my identity was lost. I felt like my identity was completely gone, and I didn't know who I was. And sometimes I still struggle with my identity of who I am and what that looks like, because of parts of me and different views and different thoughts and, disagreements and how do we work together, things like that is a challenge, but not like it used to be. So that's actually a plus.
It's amazing how powerful the brain is.
Really is.
Julie, any feedback? Like, how long have you worked with people with dissociative identity disorder?
7 years.
That's great.
Yeah. And, when I first started doing the work, it wasn't like I set out like, hey, I'm going to work with DID people. I got a client and we did some EMDR on something that we thought would not be too triggering. And it was connected to an unseen hidden trauma. And she went into, another part, and was the beginning of my journey into learning and studying and understanding how to treat dissociation. So I've been on that journey for the last 7 years. I've learned a lot.
So what would you say some things would be for people that might feel that they have DID?
Well, there is a screening that you can take. It's called the DES-2, Dissociative Experiences Scale. And if you get a score, I believe, of over 38, then that is pretty highly dissociative, and that would be an indicator to you. You could probably just download it online. It's a free measurement tool, And so if you were getting a high score, then it would be a good idea to take that to a therapist and speak with, and you